Let's start that again. The audio is off. My name's Flynn. Welcome to Adobe Live. I'm here with Bill Hope, and we would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet today and pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. My one job, the video and the audio, making that stuff work together. Stumbled at the starting block. Bill, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Flynn?
I'm doing well. For those that don't know, Bill is an artist and illustrator from the Sydney region, not too far from me here, actually. Visual artist, fine art, live scribing, like digital live scribing, obviously, over the last couple of years. Children's book illustrator.
General pencil person,
yeah, often with a pencil in his hand. There's the gallery and everything up there. Big Fish Gallery, Little Fish Gallery. Little Fish. I knew it was something to do with size. But welcome, Bill. It's great to be hanging out with you.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone joining the stream. I'm looking forward to doing a bit of sketching with you guys today. So I suppose we'll get started. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen in Photoshop.
There we go.
All right, here we are. You may see a little crab sketch was a little Easter egg for what we've got coming up later on. But today we were just going to sort of start with some basics of drawing digitally. And I guess where I'm kind of going with today's stream is talking about getting really comfortable working in Photoshop and drawing digitally in a way that you can kind of sketch freely like you would on just on a pad of paper. So a lot of the process that I think about is just how can you sort of like break down, I suppose, the technical barriers so it's the most sort of natural, relaxed feeling process, so you can just draw and not stress about all the other stuff. So you can sort of take all the pluses of digital drawing, but sort of lose a bit of the clutter and just kind of sketch naturally. So I'll talk through a little bit of my process about how I sort of set files up, what kind of brushes I use, lots of the shortcuts and things like that. See where we go. And we're going to try using a bit of reference later on in the stream to draw some kind of crazy characters. So if anything comes up throughout the stream, any questions, ideas, suggestions for drawings, let me know, and we'll get to as many as we can throughout the day. So
just
get started.
Yeah, just on that as well. Yeah, of course, we're here for an hour. So if you have any questions while we're going throughout the stream about what Bill's doing, freelancing, any of the things that we sort of spoke about, don't hesitate to throw it in chat. Hello to those in chat that we can see now. Johanna, Tara, and Misty. Misty actually has a great question. What is live scribing?
Oh, right. Getting into the weeds early. So live scribing is, I sort of started off years ago going to conferences and meetings and things where they'd get me to draw on a whiteboard while people were having a workshop or something. And years later, it's sort of become part of my career. And now often I'll do the same thing, but on the internet. So people will be having a big meeting. Of course, during COVID, this became much more popular. So they'll be having a big Zoom meeting or Teams meeting or something. And I'll be sitting in Photoshop and I'll be drawing what people are talking about as they're talking during a workshop or a presentation or something. And I'll be sort of sharing my screen online as well. So people can see sort of like a live version of the conversation appearing on the screen. So I hope that's not too confusing, but that's a brief overview of what it is. You'd be surprised how common it is now. So that's become a big part of my job.
Yeah, and that's actually how we met as well. Bill was doing some live scribing,
of course,
for Creative Mornings, which I was involved in as well. So
way back in the day.
Way back in the day. Yeah. Great question. Keep it coming. Hello, Gareth, as well in chat. We'll jump into it now.
Awesome. Okay. Yes, please do keep the questions coming. So hopefully you can see my screen in Photoshop. I've just got a plain blank white canvas here. I've got the main things I've got on my screen is over on the right. I've got my layers panel. And I've got my tools and brushes over on the left here. So I'm keeping it pretty simple, not too much clutter. I'm mainly just focusing on the canvas in the middle. So I've got a new empty layer, and I've got my pen, so I'm ready to start sketching. And a question a lot of people ask me is sort of what kind of brush I'm using. I'm pretty brush agnostic, whatever feels right to you. I don't think there's a right or wrong. The one that I've chosen for today is a pencil brush from Kyle T. Webster Megapack. If people have not come across it before, it's a amazing selection of free brushes that Adobe has provided, and you can find them by going to your brushes panel and there's a little drop-down menu, and you can just click the Get More Brushes tab there, and that will take you to an incredible world of brushes to use in Photoshop. But I'm just using a nice rough one, and I like sort of the sort of digital pencil feel of this brush. I love the texture of it, but there's a little bit of strategy to that as well. I think when you're sketching loosely, you really don't want to get lost in details too early. You want to sort of be looking at a big overview of what you're drawing. And what I like about these kind of rougher brushes sometimes is because it's kind of a imperfect brush in some ways, it sort of stops you from getting too lost in those details. You kind of have to just focus on the bigger, broader shape. So I like to use a nice big one. We're gonna keep those lines really rough. And as I sort of develop the drawing that I'm working on, I'll start to sort of add a bit of detail and refine it as I go. So that's just one little thing I like to do to sort of keep myself loose at the start of a drawing.
And so that's opposed to using like a really fine, like, you know, almost vector looking kind of brush. Just keeping it that roughness just kind of gives you like a little bit of permission to be a little bit more rough, or like,
yeah, absolutely. Like if I'm using a really precise brush like this that's quite small and dark, I can kind of immediately see all the mistakes that I'm making. Right. And there's part of you that just wants to go in and fix those. And you immediately sort of get lost in just tweaking things to make them perfect. Right. But this makes you sort of sit back a little bit more. And the other thing that I'd mention about that is something like this. It's a pure black, dark brush. And again, you can just see too much almost. So I prefer using something like that one I had before, which is kind of a little bit transparent, a little bit loose, and I don't get lost in those details. And I'm also going to go with something, I'm going to go with a dark blue, which is just a little bit lighter, and I can kind of see what I'm working with. It feels a bit more malleable.
Nice.
That's kind of how I start off sketching, so I could start drawing a face with that. As you can see, I'm working on a tablet here. It can be whatever you have available to you. If you've got a little graphics tablet, that'll work great. You can link up an iPad to your computer, and that works great as well. There's no right or wrong way of going about it. Obviously, it's a little bit easier doing it this way because I've got pressure sensitivity and I can sketch a bit more freely than, say, doing it with a mouse. That would be quite a struggle. So finding the right technology to suit sort of a sketching process is really worthwhile, I think. It was only really until I started sketching onto a screen that I think started to feel a lot more natural to me drawing digitally than drawing on paper. A lot of my process used to be drawing everything on paper and then scanning it in and just sort of finessing it digitally. That's a perfectly good process, but I feel like I've got a lot more flexibility now that I can sketch digitally or sketch on paper, and it all feels a bit the same to me. It doesn't feel like one is a compromise over the other. I can just sort of go to whichever medium sort of suits me in the moment. So as sort of just roughly sketching this guy up, there's a couple things that I'm doing that makes the whole process feel a lot easier. And the main one is I'm constantly moving in and out to sort of be in exactly the right position on my canvas to draw the thing that I want. So I'm just using something in Photoshop that's called Scrubby Zoom. And basically it's a way of, you hold down Z on the keyboard, or you can select it under the magnifying tool here. There's a little tick for Scrubby Zoom. And it just means if I move my mouse to the right, it zooms in, move my mouse to the left, it zooms out. And basically I've got my finger on the Z key almost all the time. So I'm constantly moving in and out like that. And if I've got my brush selected, I'm drawing, it just automatically goes back to my, I can just click B for my brush and I'm back. And then just those two things together, clicking B for brush, Z for the zoom, pretty simple, but you're suddenly sort of moving more freely around the canvas. And it doesn't really matter what size you're working on. I used to work on a really big tablet, and it was nice having that big screen, but I'm working on a small one now, and it doesn't really bother me because I'm sort of constantly resizing my canvas to get exactly the right position that I want. And it makes the whole process feel a lot more sort of smooth and natural, and I can just kind of sketch freely and move to the right part of my canvas, and there's no sort of messing about with multiple windows or anything like that. So that's something that I really like.
So follow-up question. So why are you zooming in and out? Like, is it just to navigate the canvas? Is it, when you're working on, say, the face and the eyes while you're sketching, you might zoom in a little bit as you're building? Like, I'm just looking at the gentleman that you started creating over there on our left, you know, you're zooming out as you're, you know, constructing. You know, what's the purpose of zooming in and out like quite a lot while you're sketching?
I suppose it's just sort of, I don't move my right hand around the canvas much. I kind of keep it in the middle there. So it's sort of almost like I'm keeping my hand in the most comfortable position for me to work in and kind of moving the canvas around while my hand stays in the middle. So I suppose a lot of that's just a kind of a comfort thing. And the other part of it is kind of the amount of detail that I'm working on. So say I was about to start drawing a giraffe here, I'll kind of do the whole thing zoomed right out. So I'm just kind of focusing on the overall shape of that thing. And then when I want to start working on the eyeballs, I can zoom right in and start adding some crazy expression to what's turning out to be a very cute, funny looking giraffe here. Yeah, so nice. So a lot of it would just be kind of a detail thing as well.
And just jumping in there, yeah, my camera just freaked out. So I've swapped to my secondary camera.
You still look great, Flynn.
Midstream.
Don't worry about it.
It's not my good side. I don't know why I set it up on the left, but you know, whatever.
It's all good, all good. Yeah, so that's kind of a rough overview of how I'm working. Some other simple things that I'm often doing is using the lasso tool to move things around on my canvas. One thing that may appear obvious to a lot of people, but is worthwhile mentioning, is that I'm not drawing onto a layer that has a white background. If I were open a new layer and to fill it with white, and I start sketching on top of that white background, so it looks exactly the same, and then I'm drawing sort of a funny face here, and then a pot plant over here. Sorry, this is all very rough. I promise I'll get into some more detailed drawing later on. But if I wanted to move that pot plant in front of that face, I'm stuck with all the white pixels in the background there. And it's really frustrating for sort of manipulating a drawing that you're already working on. So I'd really encourage everyone to sort of have their lines on a separate layer. And therefore, I can kind of manipulate my drawing and resize it and move things around. And I don't have to worry about all those sort of irrelevant white pixels in the background. Nice. So yeah, just keeping things on a layer makes things nice and easy as well. Right, I'm wondering if there's any other sort of super basics that I should go over. A lot of people, while they're drawing, will have something called the navigator up. Oh, that's disappeared into my other screen, which is kind of just an outline of your full canvas, and I can zoom in on my canvas and you can see I can kind of move around in that secondary window. And sometimes that's a good way for navigating a drawing as well. But I only really use that if I'm working on something really big and complicated that I need to zoom in on specific locations.
Right.
Okay.
That's like a mini map for Photoshop. I like it.
Yeah, and sometimes people use it as sort of a reference so you can see the zoomed out version of the drawing as well as your sort of fully zoomed in version of your drawing. So that's a really good reference to have sometimes as well, which is a helpful... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to follow up, like another kind of question just is around like when you're setting up, because we kind of open with Photoshop, but do you normally set up your file as 300 DPI or you like 600 DPI for some reason, or 72 because that's all you need because a lot of stuff is web and not likely to be printed? What's your approach there?
Yeah, I mean, usually I'm working in 300 DPI just for printing capability. So I know what size it's going to be. 300 DPI is sort of the standard resolution for high quality printing. So that's kind of my go-to, but it's really the pixel dimensions that really matter with this kind of thing, about how much detail you want. But something it's a good point, Flynn, because I'm just using an A4 size file type. So it's 30 by 20 centimeters at 300 DPI, which is a relatively small file type. And I think for sketching, it's good to kind of keep things small at the start. Even when I'm sketching a big scene, I'll often just sort of draw a tiny little box for myself and kind of roughly map out, like I've got a lighthouse here and a hill and a horizon and that kind of thing, and keeping things really small, again, to sort of focus on the bigger composition before you really get stuck into the details. So often when I'm sketching, I'll do something if I'm doing a big composition, I might start with an A4 size and I'll kind of get the basics down. And then when I feel happy with the composition and I'm ready to start working on something really big, I'll just take the file and go Command I. sorry, things keep popping up in my second display. I'll get my image size and I'll just scale the whole thing up. And then I've got kind of all the pixels I want to work with. So I think starting small is a good way to go. And also depending on the amount of power you have in your computer, you want to optimize sort of the flowiness, I suppose, of the line that you're drawing. If you're using a huge file and a big brush, you might start having a little bit of lag. And drawing in Photoshop, I do everything that you can at the start to make sure you've got as little lag as possible, just so it feels natural and you don't have to, you sometimes don't realize if you're dealing with lag on a computer how much it's limiting your workflow. I recently upgraded to a new computer and a new screen, and I hadn't realized I've been working with like a microsecond of lag. But once it's not there, it feels so much easier. Everything feels really, really smooth and nice. So whatever you can do to fix that up. Actually, while we're sort of talking Photoshop, it might be worthwhile to just have a quick talk. This might get a little technical, but I'll be quick, about preferences. Because again, it's great to optimize Photoshop to really draw smoothly. And if you open up the preferences of Photoshop, you can go to performance down the bottom, and you can tell your computer how much of its RAM memory to allocate to Photoshop. So you can really scale that up, and you can sort of, there's lots of stuff online about how you can change the settings that you've got Photoshop to make it the most efficient for drawing. So you can change sort of what your scratch discs are, or go into the GPU settings, all sorts of technical things that you can get into. But that's something worthwhile if you're struggling with any kind of lag. You can actually tweak the software a little bit to make it really smooth, and it just makes it a much more relaxing drawing process. So
I think that's a really great tip, and it really depends on, like, if you're someone that's working in across Photoshop, Illustrator, and something else on as well, and you need that for your workflow, then that's fine. But if this is my Photoshop drawing device and that's what I'm going to use it for 90% of the time, then you could bump it up, and it's not going to affect your other workflow. So I think that's a great tip. I think that sort of hidden thing can sometimes be really useful. Hopefully useful for someone out there that might not know that you can do that.
Yeah, and especially like sometimes I think if you've got sort of an older or a cheaper computer that's a bit slower, it can be really discouraging if you're opening a big file and suddenly everything's lagging and it's not working smoothly. And you can just make a couple tweaks to, most computers these days will breeze through sketching in Photoshop just with a couple of tweaks. So it's something worthwhile doing.
That's super great. We've got another question as well. Where are we? Misty asks, thanks for the question, Misty. Do you prefer to draw in Photoshop over Illustrator?
Yeah, so for this kind of drawing that I'm doing, where it's something that I'm focusing on using my hand as the main stylus, as the tool, I mean, that's the kind of drawing, I suppose I'm a bit traditional in that way. That's the kind of drawing I really gravitate towards. And I think Photoshop is best primed for doing that kind of thing, where you're sort of mimicking natural drawing techniques almost. Illustrator does so many amazing things. I've actually started drawing a little bit in Illustrator, and it's really fun. It's just a different way of thinking of making images. It's something that's much more tool or computer based. Whereas, so you're sort of meeting the computer at what it's good at in Illustrator, I think. And it's like Photoshop is kind of meeting you where you're at in terms of drawing on paper, if that makes any sense. So I wouldn't say one or the other is better, but for sort of drawing with the stylus and using these kind of brushes and something that feels a bit more natural, yeah, my preference would be towards Photoshop, but whatever works for you. I'm always amazed to see how natural someone like Art by Dale, who's often on this stream, makes drawing in Illustrator look. So you can definitely do it. Yeah.
Cool.
But yes, thank you very much for the question, Misty. Definitely let me know if there's anything else I can help with. Okay, so I'm going to start roughing out a bit of a character here. And we were thinking about what would be good for this stream, and we wanted to talk a little bit about sketching and using reference in sketches. And we've talked quite a lot on this stream before about sort of the best way to use photo reference and ways to make it work and how it can really help with sketching. I mean, if you're sort of confident in drawing animals or characters or anything really, you may not need it going directly into drawing, but it's always a really helpful thing. And so we thought we'd do a bit of drawing with reference, and I'll talk about how I sort of think about reference and ways that it can really help your process. And my partner had a bit of a challenge for me, which was I was going to take a photo of something in nature and use that as reference for like a monster or something. And she just suggested doing a llama crab. So I'm going to try and take some photos of a llama, some photos of a crab, and sort of mush them together into a weird llama crab prototype. And I think that'll be a good way to sort of get some reference up, have a look at it, and see how we can kind of merge these things together. And I think that'll be a good vehicle to sort of just talk about sketching and talk about reference as well.
I love it. I did not wake up this morning thinking we would be drawing a llama crab. So
neither did I, Flynn. It's a mysterious world we live in. But here we are. We've got to do what's been commissioned of us.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited that that's the brief. This is great.
Well, I've not tried anything to do with llamas and crabs yet, so this is a total experiment. So I hope I can pull it off. So if you're using reference, you can have it for just a photo that you've got with you. But for most people, it's going to be doing a Google image search and finding. That's sort of the most natural thing most people will do. And you can do a Google image search. So I had some photos of crabs before. And you can literally just sort of copy it and paste it into Photoshop, and now we've got a photo of a crab. And that's a perfectly good way. I do this all the time for looking at reference. But a program that I've started to use is something called PureRef, which it's either free or it's like $5 or something online. It's a very cheap program, and it's Pure, PUREREF. And I use that as a reference program, and it's a really good way to sort of drop images into something that I can have always on screen. Because if I just drop this crab into the file, I'm kind of zooming in and out, and it's kind of disappearing over here. I want it to be always visible.
I've noticed that. Yeah, I've noticed that before when I've tried to do something similar. I'm often like moving from one side of the canvas to the other, and really it would be great if they like stay side by side.
Yeah, and you're sort of turning it on and off all the time, and it just becomes a little bit of a hassle. I mean, it's a perfectly good way of doing it, and it's the simplest way. But I'm going to use PureRef. So basically, it gives you this little resizable box that sits on top of all your other windows. And the great thing about that is that it's just always visible. You can always have it there. So I can be working in Photoshop, I'm moving around my canvas, but my reference stays on top, which is great. So I've gone and collected a bunch of images of llamas and crabs, and I can move around. Oh, sorry, just lost my Photoshop window. Let me get that back. I can, sorry guys, a little embarrassing. It's disappearing on me. I can.
Is it going to your other window, or is it just minimized or something?
It just keeps minimizing it. That's okay. I can still move around, so that's fine. So I can zoom in and sort of pan around and look at all the different images that I've got here. And that's going to be a helpful way to start working on this llama crab.
Awesome.
So let's get rid of those images. I just did this quick sketch as well, so sort of show you, I can roughly know what a llama looks like. I've got a general idea, but we're going to try and do something that's a little bit more finessed. And even if you've got even if I'm pretty confident with my llama drawing, I'm not, but even if I'm okay with my llama drawing, it's always helpful to have some real photos there, because there's always going to be little bits and pieces from nature that you didn't think of that are going to help you along the way. We've talked quite a lot on this stream before about sort of not becoming too reliant on reference. It would be very easy for me to drop one of these photos in and sort of simply trace over it, and that's a perfectly valid way that some people do. But I want to be a bit more loose and easy with what I'm drawing, and I want to be able to make more decisions about what this llama crab's going to look like. And for me to be able to sort of draw from sort of, I don't know, first principles or something like that, it's going to be helpful if I'm sort of looking at the reference and checking up on it regularly enough, but not becoming sort of reliant on it too much.
And I think you said first principles there. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so I just kind of say that, like, if I'm, say, taking this crab image, and I'll drop the opacity so I'm sketching on top of it, and I can draw around the outlines of this crab, and I'm gonna end up with a perfect version of this crab like that. And that's going to be great. That's going to work really nicely. I'll have a really nice crab drawing. But if I wanted to rotate that crab or change its position or something like that, I'm kind of locked into the reference. And when I say first principles, I mean, I'm thinking about, like, what's the three-dimensional object of the crab? It's got that circle to the body. It might be looking up in this direction here with its eyes there. And you're kind of building a sort of 3D model of this crab in your brain. And the more that you have access to details of this kind of imaginary 3D model of a crab, the more ability you have to kind of move it and adapt it to how you want. And so when I say first principles, I sort of, like, you're really drawing it from the ground up. Like, what are the basic positions of the legs? What direction is it? How close am I to it? All those kind of things. So that's roughly what I mean when I'm talking about first principles.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. That's a great explanation.
Cool. So I'm thinking about just sort of like the really big shapes. And again, with this rough brush, you see, I'm not getting lost in detail. I'm just thinking about what are the big shapes of this llama. So one of the identifiable things about them is that they've got these big long necks, but the neck kind of hangs down a little bit from the body. It's got that odd kind of rounded shape there. We'll sort of rough in the general outlook of the head there. And you see, I'm just keeping it really sketchy, not worrying about the details or the expression or anything like that at this point. Their front legs kind of sit back a little bit, and they've got that almost like poodle shape from their fur. It's sort of almost like they're wearing bell bottoms or something like that. I should have got some reference
kind of
from
the pants that Aladdin wears in Aladdin or something like that.
Yeah, a little bit like that. They got a great character to them. Let me just see if I've got any other reference of one walking, perhaps. Yeah. And another thing that I'm always doing when I'm sketching like this is I'm switching between. Probably the main things I'd use would be a Z to zoom, B for brush, and E for eraser. And if you've got the hotkeys for that going, you can always just be switching really quickly between the tools that you're using. And that really speeds things up. So I've just going to draw this llama kind of standing there. And again, I'm going to sort of resize it on the canvas and move it around until it feels like it's in the right kind of position. A tip that many people would have seen before, I'm sure, but is always worth remembering is flipping your canvas. So you can go to image, where is it? Image rotation, flip canvas horizontal. And I would like doing this because it kind of refocuses your eye on what you're looking at, and you can make little adjustments. And the more you can sort of, I'm just using some hotkeys there to flip it. You don't get too lost in what you're sketching. It gives you sort of a new perspective on this thing that you're drawing. And it's a good sort of practice to keep in mind to be doing that regularly. Okie dokie.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you ever flip it like vertical as well, or is horizontal usually enough?
That's a good question. No, I don't think I ever flip it vertical. I don't know how. I'm sure there'd be a way for me to that would help me. But I guess you're kind of still looking at the same image horizontally. It doesn't matter so much, but vertically it's quite confusing. Yeah, there are some great sort of drawing exercises you can do where you have some reference of a face upside down, and then you draw the face. You try and copy the drawing while it's upside down. And you sometimes end up with a much more accurate drawing because you're just focusing on the shapes and not focusing on what you imagine a face to look like. So there are some interesting things you can do with that. I've
seen one as well around drawing the negative space only first as well. I don't know if you've ever done that technique or seen it.
I find myself, I'm trying to draw the feet a little bit like they've got these big kind of bulges, and then at the bottom near the ankles. and I realize I'm trying to draw it like The Emperor's New Groove, with David
I'm
Spade
so
being
glad.
a llama.
Let's talk about that for the rest of the stream. That's like the most amazing movie. It's such a good movie.
It is so good, and yeah, all the voice actors in it are so great. Do you know Eartha Kitt, the singer?
No, I don't think so.
So Eartha Kitt was this sort of cabaret singer, and she's the lady that voices Yzma, sort of the evil magician.
Yeah.
And you should look up interviews or things with Eartha Kitt, because it's like she is Yzma. Like her personality is like Yzma, and she's like that all the time.
Okay.
She's amazing, just like the most interesting, fascinating, cool person. And she was sort of this, I think she was quite old when she did, I don't know if she's still alive. I think she was quite old when she did Emperor's New Groove, but she was like a cabaret singer in like the 50s and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And just a very, very cool person.
It's probably, I don't even want to know. Johanna, don't look this up, how old that movie is, because it'll age me terribly, because I remember when it came out.
Yeah.
So I would prefer not to know that information. But yeah, what do you think? Any fans of The Emperor's New Groove out there? And also Kronk, the voice actor for Kronk. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but that like
the best. Yeah, he's so good.
Good times.
All right, this has been a mostly sort of cheerful and normal stream so far, but I think it's going to get a bit weird when we start sort of crabifying this llama. So I'm happy with my sort of really rough sketch of a llama. I feel like it's got a few identifying features that make it look sort of llama-ish. I'm okay with that. And now I'm going to start trying to make it look like a crab. So the references that I found here, I'm not so much focused on sort of what the overall shape of a crab is, but I'm interested in all the really weird stuff that you see once you start looking really closely.
They're pretty creepy.
I love doing this. They're pretty creepy. Like, look at that face. That is just weird. You can do this with almost any photos of nature. The closer that you get to them, the stranger and stranger they become. So looking at the way that the the arms join together, and the sort of bristles and sort of nodules and shapes on the paws. It's got the not the paws, the claws. It's weird antenna, sort of the ridges on top of it, all sorts of things that's going is really good detail for me to look at. So again, with this, I'm not going to be copying or tracing any part of this, but I'm just using it as sort of inspiration for what a crab llama could look like. So I'm actually going to change brushes at this point, and I have on my Wacom stylus, it's got some buttons on top, and I've pre-programmed those buttons so I can just bring up my brushes tab, which makes it nice and easy. And I'm going to go with a really basic brush this time. And with something like this, I can just get a little bit more detail to sort of get some of these funny kind of characteristics in. So let's start with the face. And yeah, I apologize to any llama lovers out there. It's gonna get weird, I think. So it's got these nice ears on top, but I'm thinking that those ears actually might work better as stalk eyes at the top of our.
It's already gone in a direction I wasn't expecting.
It's gone off the rails pretty quick. I just feel like some weird little stalk eyes on this llama crab might be the way to go. They just sort of fit the shape a little bit better.
And like the crab, our stream has gone sideways.
Yes. Very good, Plen. Very good. This guy's a pro. And I think we're going to need some kind of sort of whiskers or mandibles or antenna or whatever they are on this thing. So I'm going to get some long mustachioed sort of feelers coming out the side of the nose of this.
This is very distinguished.
Llama. Yeah, it's like a sophisticated crab llama. Yeah. This isn't any old sort of...
this isn't your run-of-the-mill crab llama.
What do you think of me, Flynn? I only draw the most classy crab llamas.
Nothing but
so class. So I'm going to start sort of building up. They're almost wearing like sort of like medieval plate armor or something crab. So I'm going to sort of start building up the shape of the crab llama's face with these kind of sort of forms that will fit around fit around the llama. And a lot of crabs have these odd kind of, it's not really a mouth, it's kind of an enclosure with lots of little mandible things on it. So I'm gonna start building those out as well.
And so is it like I'm trying to remember if it has, does it kind of claw in the food like this? Sorry if anyone's very squeamish when it comes to I know it's not arachnophobia, but I'm sure it's something like that.
Yeah, it's weird. I think they have these things that are like these little paddles with feelers on the end, and I think they kind of sit there and just kind of waft things into their mouth.
That's how I eat my lunch as well.
Yeah, it's me at a yum cha restaurant, just kind of wafting things towards me.
Johanna has an important question. Will this creature walk forwards or only sideways? Well, I think we'll find out when we get further down.
That's a very good question. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm going to have to kind of change the mechanics of our crustacean-y friend here, our llama friend. I'm trying to sort of build up some detail, but I want to work quickly, so I'm just going to kind of copy and paste those things. What I was doing there, I was just using the L for lasso tool. I'm just selecting something, and then I'm pressing V, which is the transform tool. And then something I use all the time is holding down Option. You get these two little arrows, and then you can just duplicate things as many times as you want. And that's a really good way of sort of just building up detail quickly. So because its neck's got to move, I'm kind of going to build it out in segments. So it's something that you can imagine being able to flex a little bit. Actually, this kind of reminds me in some way of I don't know if you tuned into the finale of Lego Masters last night, Flynn. But I
did not. I heard it went better than the debate that was on afterwards, but no, I missed.
Lego Masters has been my replacement for potential election coverage. Yeah, I think it's a little easier to consume. Yeah. So I'm going to get some ridges at the back there. Let's sort of break that up into a couple different pieces. Anyway, the winning build from that was a kaiju, like the big monsters from Pacific Rim.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah, and it was in a similar kind of crab-like structure. I'm sort of building these plates out. So let's start thinking about how the legs are going to work. I need some sort of big socket or something that's going to work for the leg of this. Might use some more of those sort of bumps or things that we saw on the claws here to sort of describe the shape of the objects that I'm drawing. We're going to need some. Let me just look at a bit more of the reference and see.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It's like it's so interesting. Yeah, because it's like plate mail, isn't it? Like it's not just a solid thing that kind of intersect and overlap. Yeah, and you got to sort of think about how they would move inside each other. It's kind of, well, I mean, it is an exoskeleton, literally a skeleton on the outside. So thinking how all those things move. And the interesting thing about sketching something like this is you kind of have to think like, well, how does the llama move? Which bits of it have got to move within other bits? And then how do I sort of make because I mean, your vision is incredibly perceptive in ways that you don't realize. Like if I draw a big piece that goes over the back and into the leg like this, there's some part of you that thinks that like, well, that can't flex, it doesn't quite work, even if you're not cognitively thinking of it. Your brain at some level is going to be aware that this thing doesn't quite sort of check out. So now that we're getting to the legs of this llama crab, it would be a poor llama crab if it didn't have claws of some sort. So I've got to think of a way that I'm going to incorporate that in. But the more I think about it, they don't really walk on their claws, a crab. It's such a silly thing. Like we're doing something very surreal, but you kind of have to think it through about how does this actually work? They don't really walk around on their claws. So I'm not sure if the feet are going to work. So I might sort of really abstract this thing and go with a kind of scorpion tail claw or something up at the back here. So I can get that claw motif in there, but I don't lose the kind of functionality of our crab llama. So again, I'm just going to do a little bit of quick texturing, sort of whip it up, and then I'll kind of draw a rough outline of what the tail could look like. And then again, I'll sort of do some more of these kind of segment shapes along it in a way that you can kind of imagine this would be something that could flex and move in the right direction.
If you have any questions about where my art career went wrong or how I ended up drawing crab llamas on the internet, just put them in the chat. I'm having a couple thoughts myself about why I'm having such a honest discussion with people.
Hey man, this is your idea. Making it sound like I pitched you. Hey, you're the crab llama guy.
This is entirely my idea. I hope I can put it on my business card in the future. Draws crab llamas.
That's amazing. Got to update your LinkedIn immediately after the stream. Speaking of questions and things like that, throw them in chat if you have them here for like another 15 minutes or so. So we will be back on Thursday for more llama drama on the Crustacean Station. If you could only use one brush for the rest of your art time, which brush would it be? So there we go.
Yeah,
one brush. If you're stranded on a desert island with just you and the llama crab, and you have one brush, what would it be?
Yeah, I have an answer to that, and it is another one of the Carl T. Webster brushes. We've been over it plenty of times on the stream. It's this nice inky one, and I love it because it does scratchy things. When you get up close, it's nice and rough around the edges. It does little thin things, and it does big thick things. It feels like the most multi-purpose brush for me. I have no idea what it's called, so I'm sorry. I can't send it to people. But you can find it in the mega pack, and it's under the ink section, and it's like the 10th one or something like that. So just go through that whole pack, and you'll come across it.
We'll narrow it down. We'll see if we can dig into that between now and Thursday. If you want us to get really specific. There you go. I would imagine if that's your favorite, then there's probably quite a few other very good ones in that same pack. So folks can go and check it out and try them for themselves.
Yeah, there's lots of good stuff there. So I'm kind of piecing together the legs of this llama. I'm trying to sort of mimic that shape that it had in its fur, but keeping that sort of segmented look. I spent a great deal of my university years working on a series of 3 books for a guy, which were all about a heroic cockroach that drove a motorbike. So don't ask anyway. I've drawn a lot of strange things, but I spent a lot of time drawing cockroaches, and for any kind of insect drawing, they're quite interesting in that they kind of like get thin in the middle and then kind of blossom out for the joints, and that's quite a good sort of reference shape to draw with lots of things. So I always end up sort of falling back into that groove. So you can see I've got these kind of convex or concave, either one, shapes that I'm working together for that.
I like how only moments ago you asked like how your career trajectory changed into this way. Oh, by the way, when I was studying, I spent like 3 years drawing insects. I think there's a pattern.
Yeah. Okay, I can't blame anyone else for this.
That's right.
It's not my own doing. Okay, well, it's one of the stranger things that I've drawn, but I'm relatively happy with it as a first go at a sort of armored llama crab.
The armored
so
llama.
We've got
that's the name.
15 minutes left, and if there's any questions or anything I can help with in terms of sort of roughing things out or sketching, please do let me know. But I thought I would be remiss if I didn't try and do the reverse in the remaining time that we have. Of drawing a nice fluffy llama crab in reverse. So a crab llama. I think we're going to try a crab llama. So I will try and knock that out as quick as I can, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay, I'm going to just throw out there as well, since we have another stream on Thursday to see. Let's do a bit of a crowdsource. To see what will be an interesting combination of creatures for Thursday. I don't know if we're going to get to it, but let's see what the brains trust here at Adobe Live. So if you have any ideas, so we started off with crab llama and llama crab. What are some other interesting combinations of animals that are either horrific or horrifically funny that we can focus on for Thursday?
Yes, very much looking forward to your suggestions of what I can do. I'm kind of looking at this crab reference here, and again, just kind of like we were talking about first principles, sort of thinking what's sort of the sort of 3-dimensional shape of that body. I'm going to rough that out. I'm sort of thinking about the crab claws are kind of sitting up in this little sort of perch position like that. They kind of go down and then come back up. So I'm trying to sort of rough that out. And again, I'm going to do the same thing I did before, where I sort of do a first sketch, drop the opacity, and draw on top of that. So I'm not worrying about any details whatsoever, just keeping this one super, super simple. Yeah. It's quite tricky getting those legs to land in the right place. I might kind of think about, so if this crab's sitting on the ground, I might think about where the legs will touch the ground, and then I'll kind of connect them up instead. That might give me a better sense of where they should be.
Oh, that's really interesting. Like trying to figure out what plane of existence it's kind of on, and then
yeah. When I used to do a lot of life drawing, it's very tempting to start drawing the head and working down into the body. But sometimes you kind of end up with a figure that's not quite anchored on the ground. They sort of look like they're floating around. So I had some tutors that sort of talked to me about like deciding where the weight of the body was first and drawing the legs in and getting the weight in the right place. And then you sort of put all the perfunctory stuff like head and shoulders on top afterwards. And that's sometimes a good thing to kind of reference. To be incredibly boring, I will put in my never-ending plug for people to do life drawing, because the things you pick up at life drawing will help you draw llama crabs in the future. So it's all worthwhile stuff. Okay, that's really, really rough, but let's work with it. So again, I'm just going to drop the opacity way down on that one, get a new layer. And now I'm trying to think about how I can sort of lamify this crab. And I think the way to go will be to sort of do the reverse of what we did before. So I'm going to submit stalks for ears this time instead of the other way around. So let's get some nice, cute, fluffy llama sort of shaped ears coming out the top of this guy. And then they've got these big kind of funny looking eyes on them, these llamas. So let's try and do something like that. They've got a oddly kind of grumpy but dopey expression on them. So I'm trying to think about how I can make that expression work. I'm going to get some nice big eyes. They've got very dark pupils altogether. So I'm going to sort of fill those in. Don't want it to look too grumpy. I'm kind of going for something that's a bit cuter, perhaps. So I can sort of try and roughly work in something that might be perceived as eyebrows to give it a bit of expression.
We need to make a kid's book like this that's full of animals that don't exist.
That's a very good idea. It's got a cute little smile on it. And then some big puffy cheeks. Let's put some highlights on the eyes for maximum cuteness.
Cuteness, yeah.
We'll ramp it up. And it's going to be a nice fluffy crab as well. So I don't quite know how to do fluffy claws, but let's do the best that we can. So we've got some nice fluffy claws there. And it's not going to be too sharp or anything. So let's give it some little like hoof-like points or something on its fluffy claws. So yeah, it's sort of an interesting exercise doing something like this, because you've kind of got the fundamental shape of the thing that you're drawing, and then you're sort of taking little bits and pieces and mixing them together to make some sort of animal soup. And let's give it some nice big furry arms down there as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting, like putting the hooves on the end, on the tip of the crab claws, because I wouldn't have thought of that. I would have just thought, well, the extremities have to be one or the other, but why not?
Yeah. All right, it's making nice and shaggy all over, and I'm going to sort of reference a little bit of that sort of bell-bottom shape on the bottom of the legs here as well. Get a little bit of that, almost like a poodle dog kind of character to them.
Just thinking of the song like apple bottom jeans and the feet with the fur. I'm sorry for singing on the stream, but I just, as soon as you started drawing like fuzzy feet,
Yeah.
It's great. We've got a couple of great suggestions for the next stream. I'll wait till the end. I'll let if there's any more people that have any animal combinations, throw them in.
Oh, brilliant.
Throw them in. We'll chat about them as we kind of exit. We've still got about 4 minutes left before then, so we can
okay, cool.
Crabify this lamify this crab.
Okay, it's got a little messy now, so I'm just gonna sort of this is actually the first time I've used this particular pencil brush. It's really great. It's got a lot of texture to it, and I can use the side of the pencil to do a bit of this kind of shading. So I'm just going to shade out some of the arms and things and kind of try and sort of clarify some of those shapes a little bit more. So we just focus on the bits that we care about. And I'll just shade in those ears as well. Well, it's not what I expected, but I'm kind of happy where we landed at. It's always nice when you get a bit sort of surprised. I've actually just noticed in the reference here, one of the identifying features is lots of llamas have these wonderful luscious eyelashes. So we better work some nice big eyelashes into our llama crab as well. Oh, that's looking good. All right. All right. And they've also got, again, it's always just worth going back to the reference, even though it's gone all blurry here. But there's something about that nose that I want to try and capture a little bit more.
It might be a bit smaller comparative to the eyes, maybe. Maybe that's...
Yeah, I think that'd be good. So I'm just going to select and sort of shrink that in. Oh, that's good call. They've got some sort of almost like bags under their eyes there, and it comes back out. We'll give it a bit more of a smiley face there. It's got a lovely kind of natural feel with that texture there. I'm actually just going to change the color of the background. So it, don't want to lose it altogether. Let's go with something a bit more sort of muted like that.
Do you often draw with just white background? I know we spoke before about having a background on a different layer and drawing on transparent pixels. But yeah, do you often find, I kind of need a background color? Because we will have artists on sometimes who will just I just can't deal with drawing on white and want to have a background color.
Yeah, no. I mean, I totally agree. I almost always start with a white background, but as soon as I change the color, I'm like, oh, this is so much nicer. I don't know why I don't do this all the time. So,
right.
Yeah. And it's nice having a slightly shaded background, and then I can start sort of drawing some highlights in with a white pencil like I'm doing here. And it just sort of makes a few bits sort of pop a little bit more, and I can kind of call out some of the details that I want.
We might need to wrap up there, my friend. I think we're just about out of time, and I do want to thank you and Inga for the direction that we've gone in today's stream. Beautiful.
It's been really fun.
And we do have some suggestions. Let's go through these. I'll go from most recent. Dark horse with an alligator body. And Johanna, if you can collect these as well, we'll pop them in and we'll share them. We can have a think about it. Flynn with a seahorse body.
Yes.
Seahorse.
Agreed. I'll do it.
Seahorse / doggy. I'm not giving you a reference of a body shot right now. Maybe when I was younger. So seahorse / doggy. Pig / fish. I think there was one more. Dragon / unicorn.
Dragon / unicorn. I did a session with some kids, a drawing class, and one of the kids actually did a dragon unicorn as well.
Oh, wow.
So it's a popular one. It's a good one. Brilliant. Well, I will get some reference of some of those, and we'll be back on 1 p.m. Thursday, I believe.
Yes, we will. 1 p.m. Thursday. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. It was great fun. Thanks for the great questions and everything. And we'll see you in 2 days for some more Adobe Live with Bill Hope. Thanks, Bill.
No worries. Thanks, guys. We'll see you then.
Bye.